So I think everybody had the time to join now. So good morning, everyone, and welcome. Bonjour à toutes et à tous et bienvenue. My name is Thomas Cargonou-Jiménez, and I work in the Cities, Urban Policies and Sustainable Development Division at the OECD. Donc, je m'appelle Thomas Cargonou-Jiménez. Je travaille à la division des villes, des politiques urbaines et du développement durable à l'OCDE. I am delighted to have you all here for today's webinar on the twin transition in action. What can urban policies do for retail SMEs in cities? We have a great discussion ahead of us, so thank you for joining. Donc, je suis ravi de vous accueillir pour notre webinaire sur la double transition en action que peuvent les politiques urbaines pour les commerces de centre-ville. Before we dive in, let me quickly go over a few information and housekeeping points. So simultaneous interpretation in English and French is available. To access it, simply click on the interpretation button at the bottom of the screen and select French or English or no interpretation. If you can't see the button, you can use the More section to choose the channel that you need. Donc pour les francophones, il y a une interprétation simultanée anglais-français qui est disponible. Donc pour y accéder, il vous suffit de cliquer sur le bouton d'interprétation en bas de votre écran et de sélectionner français ou anglais ou pas d'interprétation. Si vous ne voyez pas ce bouton, vous pouvez cliquer sur plus ou more et vous avez ensuite le choix et l'option de l'interprétation. Donc je vais continuer en anglais, mais vous pouvez continuer à suivre en français grâce à cette interprétation. So this webinar is being recorded and the replay will be available on our webpage later this week. My colleagues will share all the relevant links in the chat for the resources and the web pages. Since this is a Zoom webinar, only speakers have the ability to take the floor. So we encourage you to use the Q&A function to submit your questions and engage with our panelists. Please make sure to use Q&A rather than the chat for content-related questions. On the other hand, if you experience any technical issue, feel free to use the chat function to reach out to our support team. For more background on our work on cities and retail SMEs, I invite you to visit our project webpage and explore the publication of the OECD Center for Entrepreneurship, SMEs, Region and Cities. And my colleagues will also share some links linked to that. And finally, this webinar is part of a project called the Twin Transition and the Future of Retail SMEs in Urban and Rural Areas, funded by the European Commission. And our final report for this project is expected to be released next fall, so stay tuned. So now let me quickly walk you through today's agenda. We'll start with some opening remarks, followed by a scene setting to lay the foundation for our discussion. Then we will have two sessions, each lasting 45 minutes, with 30 minutes for speakers and 15 minutes for Q&A session. And finally, we will wrap up with some concluding remarks to reflect on the key takeaways from our discussions. So now let's start this webinar. I will now hand over to our speakers for some opening remarks. First, I am very pleased to welcome Julia De Brena, Head of the Food, Retail and Health Units in the Directorate General for Internal Market, Industry, Entrepreneurship and SMEs at the European Commission. And we will also hear from Camille Viros, Head of the Inclusive Growth in Cities Unit at the Center for Entrepreneurship, SMEs, Regions and Cities at the OECD. So Julia, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Thomas, and good morning to everybody, and welcome to the webinar, The Twin Transition in Action, What Can Urban Policies Do for Retail SMEs in Cities? That is organized in a context of a joint project of the OECD and my Director General, DG Grow in the European Commission. I'm extremely happy to see the interest in the transition of retail SMEs, in particular, given the role small retailers play in our daily lives. Indeed, the retail ecosystem has a very strong social dimension. It serves 450 million EU consumers every day, a big chance that you will be using the ecosystem even today. And often at very, very local level. 99% of EU retailers are SMEs, and more than 2/3 of them are micro companies. These are the small shops that surround us here, where we live, where you live, in cities and rural areas. They offer proximity to consumers, support local economies, and contribute to the vitality of city centers. It is therefore no surprise that one of the Commission's priorities is to support retail SMEs in their green and digital transition. This journey, we all acknowledge, is not easy in the current economic and geopolitical situation. Consumer behavior has been changing, and it's not only a turn toward online shopping. Consumers have also been turning toward affordable shopping options in the midst of the inflation crisis, and competition from outside of the EU has been growing. In this context, it is all the more important to support and accompany retail SMEs. The joint project with the OECD is providing the Commission with the necessary knowledge bases and indicators to help develop our policies. It is also mapping policy best practices across the EU to provide inspiration for the relevant authorities and facilitate the exchange of these best practices among the relevant stakeholders. The future of retail SMEs and their role in keeping urban and rural areas lively and attractive for consumers has been on the Commission agenda for quite some time already. Since 2018, the Commission initiative Revitalize Retail fosters an exchange of best practices on how small retailers can adopt the green and digital transition and reinvent themselves to remain attractive for consumers. In this context, we have been organizing workshops involving national, regional, and local authorities, the retail SME community, and other organizations supporting revitalization of retail in urban and rural areas. We are now also launching a project to create the European Capitals of Small Retail, following an initiative and request of the European Parliament. That came from a citizens' petition, and we've been tasked to implement it. And that goes really to show how this is a request that really comes from the ground for us to do something. So as a result, in 2026, the first 3 cities, a large, medium-sized, and a small city, will be awarded the title of the European Capital of Small Retail. This award is supposed to allow cities to showcase the remarkable results they have achieved in revitalizing town centers and supporting the competitiveness of small retailers. Today, we will already have the occasion to listen to the experts who have a first-hand experience in local policies supporting retail SMEs' competitiveness and resilience at the very, very local level. I am confident that these discussions will usefully contribute to the joint OECD Commission project and the development of the Commission policy on this issue. Really, unfortunately, I have to co-chair another event, and so will not be able to stay and listen to the discussions, but my team, Geraldine and Joanna, is online and will follow this event with great interest. I'm wishing you a successful workshop, and to all of us, a follow-up, a concrete, that will really support SMEs in the retail sector in living through the transition. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Julia, for your opening remarks and your kind words. And it's also my great pleasure to welcome everyone from the OECD to this webinar for this important discussion on the role of urban policies in supporting retail SMEs to the twin transition. As Julia was just mentioning, retail SMEs are the backbone of our cities. They are more than just businesses. They are economic engines, community spaces, and cultural landmarks that shape the feel and identity of a city and the urban experience. But as cities go through transitions, retail must adapt. The twin environmental and digital transition presents huge challenges, but also opportunities for retail SMEs in urban areas. Many of these businesses are facing mounting pressures, including rising commercial rents, evolving consumer behaviors, competition from e-commerce, and the growing demand for sustainable business practices. Urban policies can make a decisive difference in ensuring retail SMEs not only survive these transformations, but thrive in the new landscape. So today we will explore how urban policies can empower retail SMEs and drive their resilience, innovation, and sustainability. For example, digital commercial districts can help local retailers adopt new technologies, while rent reductions and urban logistics strategies that balance efficiency with sustainability all play a key role in shaping an environment that can support retail businesses. We will also discuss how city centers can remain vibrant and attractive as retail trends change. Policies that focus on revitalizing commercial districts, improving accessibility, and fostering mixed-use development can all help create urban environments where retail SMEs continue to play a central role. So today's discussions will be deeply practical across Europe and the OECD. Cities are already experimenting with new approaches. And so by sharing experiences and best practices, governments and stakeholders can shape urban policies that support the twin transition and help retail SMEs thrive. I also look forward to today's discussions and these insights that will emerge. Thank you all for being here. And I will now pass the floor back to Thomas. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julia and Camille, for these insightful remarks that sets the stage for today's discussion and provide important context for our project and webinar. So I am now very pleased to introduce our next speaker, Pedro Guimaraes, Assistant Professor at the Institute of Geography and Spatial Planning and the Center for Geographical Studies at Lisbon University in Portugal. Pedro will be presenting our scene setting segments, focusing on the transformation in retail and their implication for urban policies. Pedro, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Good morning to you all. First of all, many thanks for inviting me for be here. It's clearly a pleasure for me, and I will hopefully learn a lot from the following presentations. So let me see if I can. Oh, okay. So sorry. Yes, perfect. So this is the starting point, which is any reading on commerce or on retail must begin with the premise that retail evolves over time. So even today's commerce is a result of an evolutionary process. Therefore, any kind of measure or policy should assume that intervention being undertaken is not to stagnate change or to put it in a previous point, but to promote a commercial environment suited to the current society that is also evolutionary. The other two premises focus on the project objective, anchoring this webinar, which relates with the digitalization of the society and the obvious need to adjust to sustainability concerns. So this is one of the starting points. Currently in the EU, a large portion of the society already uses the internet to purchase goods and services. Although with some difference between countries, the average of the EU 27 exceeds 70%, which is remarkable. With just a few number of countries, four if I'm not mistaken, with the percentage lower than 50%. Still, despite this widespread use of the internet for shopping, both number of companies, retail companies with e-sales and their corresponding turnover remains below what is expected. In fact, in 2023, only 1 in 4 companies has e-sales, and their turnover represents less than 1/5 of the company's total turnover. This mostly indicates a significant growth potential, which I would also add that is absolutely essential. This is particularly true for small and medium enterprises, as we shall see Next, here it is. And these figures are from 23, which are recent. What becomes evident is that it is the medium in mostly the large companies that have a higher percentage of their turnover from e-sales. There is a clear gap in the ability to monetize digitally by the small business. Regarding this, I'm not exactly sure if it is completely visible. Regarding environmental concerns linked with the sustainability, almost 4 in 5 people in the EU acknowledge that sustainability issues impact their quality of life. Still, a careful analysis of some data, and the graph on the right shows that seems to highlight that the same population is also very hesitant in what concerns the change in their consumption habits towards a more sustainable practice. Indeed, this is one of the challenges that can be detected. There is clearly, and now I'm presenting some challenges. There is clearly a mismatch between what some consumers consider necessary regarding sustainability and the consumption practice they engage in. There is an interest in extending the life cycle of a product by putting it into the economy, a circular economy process, but not in consuming less and better. And this is concerning in my opinion. Another challenge relates with digital divide. The earlier data shows a lower capacity to capitalize on digital tools, and this less capacity to capitalize is most likely connected, and some examples from today will show us that relates with lower digital skills by some small business entrepreneurs. In same sense, despite a growing trend towards digital competence, a still significant part of the population still lacks digital skills. So any kind of measure or instrument to be applied must consider this. The third challenge that I detect is a structural challenge, involves the need for cities to adjust their supply channels. There is both for retailers and consumers. Various configurations of digital retail, whether we might be talking in the last mile logistics of dark stores, pickup points, drop shipping, or whatsoever, involves a need to rethink how can a physical or a supply chain that is clearly adapted to the physical retail can be transformed to adapt to a new digital retail. Lastly, the fourth challenge relates with the transition to experiential consumption and its relevance in some of the main traditional centers of commerce and service. There is, how can we make cities attractive, city centers attractive for the experience and leisure economy? This is something that I imagine every politician, every agent deals with it in their daily work. So now I will focus on actions. We already have setting the scene, challenges, now actions. And here I think we have to divide in two main groups. The first one concerns individual actions, and they are I think more simple. involves in the first case, for instance, the empowerment for retailers, digital empowerment for the retailers, digital skills. I know that some examples will be given in this session. But also it's important, and because this webinar is also related to sustainability, awareness actions on sustainable consumption. I think it's clearly important to focus on some key issues, which is something like consume less and local, and clearly favor short circuits of circular economy, which lead us to our second group of actions that concerns integrated initiatives and urban policies. And regardless of what we may be talking, whether it is the Paris 15-minute city, the Utrecht 10-minute city, Barcelona super blocks, what we are talking, it's proximity, a return to proximity. What we are talking when we are discussing city center revitalization is in most cases somehow a return to proximity at a multi-scalar analysis, which leads me to my final slide. And here, do please allow me to emphasize my role as a geographer and assert that any kind of initiatives for the digitalization of retail must be follow up, accompanied by measures that also promote the use of urban spaces. What we should aim is not for consumers replacing their use of urban spaces with digital spaces, but rather for both to integrate or to be integrated in an environment we call as phygital. So improving retailers' digital capacities or sustainability awareness for consumers must be all integrated in the connection with the physical environment that concerns our city centers. Thus, improving these spaces is vital, whether through promoting sustainable mobility. And I recognize I'm from the city of Braga, which may will be here, and I know mobility is a key issue, but it's inevitable. It's completely inevitable, whether we may delay to the future its implementation. So despite the challenges that it promotes, it's irrelevant, it's absolutely crucial. Or for instance, some other kind of action like encouraging the location of small business in central areas, offering public spaces for rent at control prices, sorry. This is already being applied in some cities like Paris with some success. Finally, in a transversal manner, allow me to again underline the importance of thinking, and I think this will be key in the near future, the importance of commercial logistics. We are now seeing in our cities a number of motorcycles from Uber, Globo, and other kinds of logistics platforms, last mile delivery. Cities in the future will need to rethink their supply chains and will need to adapt, will need to create small logistics centers within city centers, within the consolidated area. This is a key challenge, but also a key action to be developed. And thank you very much. I'm sorry if I take a little bit too much time. I'm an academic, so I like to speak in 10 minutes. For me, it's very challenging. Thank you
No,
very much.
that was very perfect. Thank you so much, Pedro, for this presentation on the evolution of retail and the challenges that the sector is facing, and also the actions that you detailed and that can be locally implemented to face the twin transition. So thank you again for this very interesting presentation. So we will now move on to our first session of this webinar. So empowering retail SMEs, policies and infrastructure to face green and digital transitions in cities. This session will explore how urban policies and infrastructure can support retail SMEs in adapting to the twin transition, helping them not only navigate challenges, but also seize new opportunities. So we are very fortunate to have with us a distinguished panel of speakers. First, Mayor Ricardo Rio, Mayor of Braga in Portugal, Vice Chair of the OECD Champion Mayors for Inclusive Growth Initiative, and Executive Committee member of Eurocities. So welcome, Mayor Rio. We will also have Elena Loredan, Director of the Institute for Youth, Culture and Tourism in Koper, Slovenia. So we are really delighted to have you with us, Elena. And finally, Philip Christ, Senior Advisor on Mobility, Innovation and Foresight at the International Transport Forum at the OECD. Welcome, Philip. And to start this session, we will hear first from Mayor Ricardo Rio, who will share insights on the digitalization of retail SMEs in Braga and the city's experience in supporting this transformation. So Mayor Rio, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Thomas. Good morning, everyone. And allow me a special greeting to Camille as well, whom we usually meet in other contexts. And obviously, thank you to OECD for inviting me to share Braga's experience, which in a certain way has been already mentioned by Pedro, whom I also greet as a person from Braga as well. Well, first of all, let me make a brief context. The city of Braga is currently one very dynamic city in terms of demographic and commercial and economic growth as a whole. We have been growing heavily in recent years in terms of population. In the last 10 years, we gained 20,000 more inhabitants to the city. And we are a city that has a very unique mixture of a very historic landscape with a lot of monuments and heritage, and a very innovative ecosystem with a very young population. We have nearly 40% of our population below 30 years old, which is obviously also linked with the presence of the University of Minho, which is our main university. But it also creates a certain, let's say, environment that is favorable to the activities of the commerce in the historic center. We have a wide pedestrian zone in the center of the city. And even if in the recent years we have been growing a lot in terms of tourist attraction, we have trebled the amount of stays in the city since 2013 till last year. We had nearly 700,000 stays last year in the city throughout the year. But the fact is, I think that the biggest pillar of the commerce dynamics in the city is the population that live in the city and that work in the city, the ones that we attract on a daily basis. And if you come to the center of the city of Braga in a common day, it doesn't have to be a weekend, you'll see plenty of people enjoying the city with a spirit that I usually mention as the city of like a stage. Is like people like to enjoy the city, enjoy the public space, enjoy the center of the city. There's a huge attraction of people to come to the center of the city, and now that obviously benefits our commerce structure. We have a very diversified commerce structure, from small business that are linked with the historical products to very innovative entrepreneurs that have been arriving to the city in recent years. We have, let's say, the more traditional brands that are present in the commerce, but we also have very qualified commerce structure that allowed us a couple of decades ago to be known as the Portuguese capital of commerce. Because if somebody wanted to come to look not for a shopping mall, but for a traditional commerce a retailer, they will come to the city of Braga and to the historic center of the city. Obviously, we are suffering the same transformations that Pedro and the other speakers already mentioned. And I will share in my presentation the results and let's say the initiatives that we are developing currently in a specific project, which is named Braga Smart Retail. It's a digital neighborhood project that is aimed at transforming the city's commercial landscape. And this initiative is currently a partnership between the City of Braga, the municipality, the Chamber of Commerce, and is also part of a broader national program that aims to digitalize and enhance local commerce. In Portuguese, it's called Bairro Digital, and this is an initiative that once again we have been developing, as in many other cases, in the logic of a collaboration. It's not something that is only managed by the municipality, but is something that we try to engage not only the representatives from the economic sector, but also the commercial agents and the retail agents, the small, medium companies in the city, so that they belong to the shape of the program, and they obviously participate in the implementation of the program. As it was mentioned, retail SMEs in Braga face several challenges in adapting to the digital and green transitions. The growing competition from e-commerce platforms has put pressure on traditional business and requiring them to modernize their operations and adopt new digital tools. Additionally, the shift in consumer behavior towards online shopping has highlighted the need for a stronger digital presence, and many small retailers lack the necessary digital skills and financial resources to make this transition effective. Moreover, the rising costs of energy and sustainability requirements add another layer of complexity, making it essential to support these businesses in adopting more efficient and eco-friendly practices. This Braga Smart Retail project was the highest scoring and most funded project under the Digital Commercial Neighborhoods program of the national government, and it currently covers 52 streets in the historic center of Braga, encompassing 927 commercial and service establishments. The project has an eligible investment of 1.5 million euros, with a total incentive of 1.3 million euros that are allocated to the promoters. I have to say that this fund is not the single part of the investment that is being developed, because obviously this is some sort of a leverage for other public investments that we are making, namely in public space, in mobility issues, like Pedro has mentioned, but also investments that are being done by the private entrepreneurs and also by the Chamber of Commerce. Our primary objectives are to digitalize local commerce, enhance the urban space, and create a seamless shopping experience that integrates physical and digital elements. As for the key components of the project, let me just mention that we have obviously a technological infrastructure, and the initiative aims to create advanced technological environments, including online platforms for local commercial offerings, internet access points, and digital systems for sales and order management. Also, it obviously involves an urban planning dimension, and it includes plans for better traffic management, agile purchasing processes, and a more technologically advanced public space. And for instance, we are putting in the city digital screens to promote business, community, and public sector. Finally, it has an economic impact because Braga Smart Retail is expected to drive economic growth by supporting local business in their digital transition and enhance the overall shopping experience for all the consumers. This will also benefit the community as a whole, and by integrating digital tools, the project aims to make the shopping experience more memorable and efficient, and it will also enhance the shopping experience for the people that come to the city or that live in the city. It also has a dimension of IT support for local businesses, because even if the project does not directly fund the digitalization of individual businesses, it creates an ecosystem that supports that transition to digital platforms. And the initiative includes plans to revitalize public spaces, making them more attractive and functional for both residents and visitors, provoking public space improvement. In addition to Braga Smart Retail, the Chamber of Commerce will complement the project with another National Recovery and Resilience Plan measures to support the digital transition of micro and small businesses. And this includes free diagnostic service and action plans for digital transformation, along with vouchers for training and specialized consultancy. This will work as an accelerator to digital commerce overall. This is not the single example that we have been developing in terms of support to the digitalization of commerce. I would like also to mention to you that in the recent past, and together once again with the Chamber of Commerce, but also with Startup Braga, which is a municipal incubator for innovators and entrepreneurs, we have provided extensive training programs focused on helping small businesses to create and manage their own websites. This initiative has been crucial in empowering local entrepreneurs to establish their online presence, which is essential for their digital transformation and also for the competitiveness of these small businesses in the modern market. Finally, through Invest Braga, we are consistently promoting courses and capacity building opportunities to assist small businesses and retailers in overcoming the challenges of the digital transition. Our ultimate vision is to position Braga as a leading example of a digitally enhanced commercial district, serving as a model for other cities in Portugal and maybe in the world. And that's why we have learned so much from other experiences abroad, and we also like to share our experiences with other cities worldwide. A successful implementation of Braga Smart Retail will not only boost local commerce, but also enhance Braga's reputation as a forward-thinking and innovative city, which, as some of you may know, led us to be the European Rising Innovative City in 2024. And that's why we always try to bring innovation into all our projects. We are also encouraging our local stakeholders to support this initiative and to contribute to its success, ensuring that Braga remains a vibrant and competitive commercial hub. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mayor Ricardo Rio, for this, I think, very insightful and valuable testimony. I am sure that other cities can definitely be interested in replicating these successful policies to digitalize retail SMEs in Braga. So thank you so much for this intervention. It was super interesting. And we will now continue with another perspective from a local authority. We are pleased to welcome with us Helena Loredan, Director of the Institute for Youth, Culture and Tourism in Koper, Slovenia. Elena will share Koper's experience in supporting the competitiveness of retail SMEs and how local policies can foster their resilience and adaptation in an evolving market. So Helena, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. I also have a pleasure to speak with you today and to present you some things, some operations, some activities which are doing in Koper, our small city. Thomas, just a short question. You will show, okay, perfect. This is Koper, our city. It is located in southwestern Slovenia on the coast. So we have a sea and we have a port. Koper is a historical center today with a very important port and university in the city. Something happened. Okay. Now I am on the slide with tourism, with just, yeah. Okay, I will continue. Our city is also a green city. It means that we have a gold green destination label. We have a very rich history and cultural heritage, gastronomic treasures, natural attractions. We offer a lot of sport activities like hiking trails, bike trails. In the last years, also we invested in some sports, indoor and outdoor recreational activities. So we have a new skate park, coastal park, city park, Olympic pool, and climbing center. This was a short introduce. Now I would like to explain you how we compete with online sales and large shopping centers. We know that online sales and the large centers present very strong competitions, but there are strategies that smaller stores, boutiques, or specialized retailers can use to attract customers and build long-term relationships. Here, now I will present you some of our approaches. From the beginning of this year, we have a new function. It is a lady in our institute, which is town city manager. She is responsible. She is a bridge between the owner, the vendors, and on one side and on the other side between municipality of Koper and our Institute for Tourism. One thing which is already known in our city, we have a special rental space policies. It means that the commercial spaces owned by the municipality of Koper have a 30% of discount on rental fees. This is for commercial spaces on one hand. On the other hand, we offer free use of commercial spaces for cultural institutions and non-governmental organizations that have been granted the status of operating in the public interest. This is the first approach. From this year, we started with pop-up stores. It means that we have located an appropriate municipal space in the Old Town Center, and we made an agreement with between us and our municipality that we can give this space gratis, without fees, to the one vendor, operator, or something, and now we have online a call for proposal. We prepared, and with this call, we will invite new vendors offering interesting products or services in the city. This is temporary. This is like 2 or 3 months per year. It means that we can choose 3 or 4 vendors per year. Okay. We started last year with a big online campaign in which we are promoting the positive stories from the city. We are promoting the offers, the vendors which are located in the strong city. In our online homepage, also in on the digital social media. I made 2 screenshots on the left side of this presentation because the digital or the social media we have only in Slovenian, but just to have a view how it works. We are going to these vendors. We are taking some good, beautiful photos, and we are writing their story. Now we are in contact with the municipality of Koper to put these stories in the newspaper. We have very lot events in the city center. Some of them are organized by us, some of them are organized by other organizers, but we are also co-financing them on one side, and we are also giving them the promotional marketing space in our social media on our website. Last year, we started with some new events. One of them is Altroche Martinovanje. In November, we have this Day of San Martin, which is more or less there are big parties in all of the city of Slovenia, but we decided to put this wine festival in the historical palaces of Koper. This is one event. On the other hand, we have a vintage car meetup, which is next Saturday. And last Saturday, we had 8th of March, women's event, in which we include more than 50 vendors in the town center, like restaurants with menus, bars, special offers, shops, special discounts, hairdressers, special discounts. So we also, with this event, we are trying to support the vendors and the offers in the city center. Here are some photos of the happening in the city of Koper. The first is vintage car. The second one is Martinovanie, like event of San Martin. The third is photo is like the street view, the mood in the city. And the fourth one is the opening ceremony of the December happening in Koper. We have also some other activities. We started with the creation of a catalog of urban furniture, which we will really try to unificate the exterior appearance of the shops in the strong city center. Last year we started with Fairy Tale Street. We decided to make the main street fairy tale. We started with some things for children in December. In the February we continued with the poetry because February is a month of culture in Slovenia, and we will start going on. We are trying now to put this. We put the big digital screens directly in the shops. Now we are in collaboration. We will talk with other public spaces, not only shops, maybe other public spaces to make them fairy tale. We are now organizing some workshops for vendors. So we will start this year with specialized architects who focus on setting up a shop's window to avoid some strange or not so beautiful and visual shop windows. And we have also some tourists which are coming with cruises. So we are now in discussion with municipality of Koper on one hand and with the vendors on the other hand to leave them to use the public space in front of their establishment. And of course, this will be free of charge. So thank you, everyone. These were our approaches. I just want to mention that for more than 10 days, we didn't have town city manager. The municipality of Koper decided to give back this role. So we have a very good woman, very brave and strong woman, which is now is also with me, is hearing you. So both of us will hear our presentations. And this is a very good choice because without this, so also people must do their job, yeah? Not only the municipality with politics, but the people, we have to do our work. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Helena Loredan, for this valuable testimony on the challenges that are faced by retail SMEs in Koper, but also like these innovative solutions that the municipality is implementing, both by supporting directly retail SMEs, but also trying to revitalize city centers. And we will talk a bit more on these policies in the second session. So thank you so much for your intervention. It was super interesting. We will now move to our next speaker, Philip Christ. He's a senior advisor on mobility innovation and foresight at the International Transport Forum at the OECD. Philip will delve into sustainable urban logistics in cities and discuss how urban policies can improve the way goods move within the cities, impacting also retail SMEs, of course. So, Philip, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Thomas, and thank you for the previous speakers. I definitely would very much like to visit Braga and Koper now after those two presentations. So, but here we are today in this webinar and speaking about small and medium-sized retailers in cities. And small and medium-sized retailers in cities depend on an entire ecosystem of different kinds of transport services and logistics services to help support them. And I believe my slideshow has disappeared, so I don't know if we can put it back on. in which case I will continue. The presentation I've entitled Urban Logistics Revisited, and that's because while cities are catalysts for creativity and they're fonts of economic prosperity, that depends on their ability to serve as well as platforms for consumption and as areas where trade occurs, both at the micro scale and at the macro scale. And so urban logistics has always been a recurring theme in urban policy and also a source of great tension. I'll speak to three things today when talking about the logistics ecosystem, and that's going to be what is it that we're trying to optimize in urban areas from a transport and logistics perspective, what are some of the urban distribution challenges that we see emerging now, and what are some of the challenges linked to the transformation of our urban spaces to be more sustainable and to deliver prosperity in a more durable and tenable manner. Going first to the optimization challenge, and this is the same for public for passenger travel as it is for goods travel in cities. We have tended to focus on delivering through our transport policies greater time savings to individuals and greater time savings to companies by speeding up travel, by increasing the number of opportunities that are available in a given amount of time, by constructing infrastructure and increasing the speed of logistics and passenger travel, as I've said. And that's because we believe that time is scarce, and we know that time is scarce for individuals and time is scarce for companies. But in urban areas, in dense urban areas, and when most people are traveling and when most goods are traveling, time isn't the scarcest resource that policymakers have to address. That scarce resource is, in fact, space. And so here we, as public authorities, have to think about not just optimizing travel time, and in some cases, not prioritizing travel time savings, but really looking at urban space consumption and thinking about ways in which that space can be reallocated for better outcomes for all, not just for those that are facing increased travel times. So optimizing for best use of urban space rather than optimizing only for speed. When we think about the changes in logistics patterns, we have to understand the entire logistics ecosystem in cities, and then we can talk about where different small and medium-sized retailers connect to that. When we look at flows through cities, flows of goods and materials, the main flow in terms of volume is construction, roadwork, and building materials. But there are these other flows, retail and food flows, clearly important for small and medium-sized enterprises, office and commercial supply flows, hotel, restaurant, and catering flows, and of course, express parcel post flows. This is something that has accelerated with the advent of e-commerce. But at the same time, we have to remember that there are interregional flows. Once these things arrive into cities, they also move around. And there are external flows out from the urban areas. So again, materials, construction and waste, recycling and waste, goods that are produced and are sold, and returns. With, again, the uptake of e-commerce, this is a key area where we see an increase in activity that takes up space on our streets. When we look at the entire ecosystem around urban distribution and urban logistics, we can see that, of course, there's this long distance component that's from city to city, from region to region. In these areas, you have the use of trucks, the use of airplanes, the use of ships, generally high efficiency use, high load factors for those. And then these goods and then these components hit the urban area, and when this is the scale at which urban logistics becomes the main reality. And here we have to think about how those goods are going to be distributed to different kinds of urban delivery services. These are generally going to be using heavy to medium-sized trucks, using the regional road networks, and there's a concentration of hubs in the periphery that service the urban area. The final kilometer, the final few kilometers, the last mile, if you will, that is the urban distribution task per se. And this is from the hub to the curb, not completely to the shop. Here, the volume tends to be the constraining factor. We see fairly low weight but high volume goods being circulated, so rather low efficiency in use of the transport energy that's being deployed. These are going to be smaller sized trucks, and in many cases now we see smaller than van-sized vehicles, including motorized 2- and 3-wheelers and bicycles. And this takes place on the same street network as passengers traveling. And the oftentimes hidden component or forgotten component is the delivery, which is the last few meters. And this is from the curb to the final destination, from the curb to the pickup and drop off space. This is going to be done by walking only, and sometimes with push carts. And it creates new tensions in these mixed spaces where a lot of other things are happening on the pavements, on the curbs, and in private spaces. There are different kinds of patterns in which these goods are going to be dropped off. I won't go into too much detail here, but just to say that there is no single model for the kinds of patterns for distribution that take place, but there are a lot of inefficiencies with certain models. For example, a drop in and out delivery that is going to be managed by a bespoke supplier is going to be much more problematic from a traffic perspective than a delivery route type pattern that is federated among a number of different types of shippers and receivers. One thing that we see as with, and now I'm looking more at the parcel delivery aspect of freight in cities, so linked to e-commerce, although in some cases also linked to how small and medium-sized shops receive their goods. The distribution patterns that used to focus on shops and are moving more towards hubs have led to a number of new types of delivery and servicing practices in urban areas. A shift from low latency, so once a week, maybe once a day, to high latency. High latency to low latency to next hour or next half-day delivery has also changed the way in which public space is being used for delivery and for distribution. And we also see some new types of use cases that favor the use of smaller urban vehicles, 2-wheelers, 3-wheelers, bicycles, and smaller than van vehicles. One thing that we see when we look in a very disaggregate way at time use and costs for urban distribution, it is really the last few meters that are the most problematic. And this involves finding a park or parking at the curb or in the space, unloading, loading the parcels, walking or doing the final delivery to the shop or to the house, delivering, waiting, sometimes having a failed delivery and coming back. And this is an area where there are a lot of efficiencies that could be found. And it is also an area where there hasn't been a lot of policy focus in thinking about how to facilitate this last few meter concentration. But one of the things that it has made apparent is that the curb in cities is no longer just a place to store vehicles, but it becomes, over the course of the day, a multi-purpose space that isn't always well organized, isn't always completely optimized, but certainly is going to be an area where future pressure is going to call forth new kinds of solutions that look at the dynamic allocation of space during the day. And this is something that many cities are considering, having dynamic allocation of curb space, both for logistics, but also for other purposes that are delivered through digital twins and other types of management devices for this very under pressure type of urban space.
Hey, sorry, Philippe, just a quick time check. We have about 1 minute left for this presentation. Thanks.
I'll say that the real estate footprint is changing as well. One of the things we see is increased pressure on ground floor real estate. So we're moving from these kind of out of city hubs to these kinds of spaces, which are in-city distribution hubs. These are linked to different types of services. In some cities, they have been under pressure from policy. And Paris is one example where the kind of dark store distribution hubs that we see here are much fewer now and they're much more regulated. But it highlights the fact that ground floor real estate is under pressure, not just for real estate, but also for this kind of micro-hubbing behavior. Logistics facilities, as I've said, are changing. We see these kind of e-fulfillment places being outside of city centers, moving to the center of cities. But what we also see are new patterns that require new kinds of micro depots and pickup and drop-off centers that can be lockers, but they can also be shops, like we see here in London, like we see in many cities, where shops are both participating in the final few meters of distribution, but they're also providing services, retail services, for people in cities. And I'd like to finish with two things. One is on the vertical integration that we see in cities. There is a vertical integration within logistics services that is something that we haven't seen yet, but that may emerge as a new type of market for logistics services for entire districts, rather than having bespoke district logistics suppliers competing in the same space. And finally, on the urban transformation challenge. And here we can see that there are four types of levers that policymakers can activate to try to manage the flow of logistics in their cities, determining where these flows take place, at what time these flows take place, what kind of vehicles and what kind of services are going to be used to deliver on these flows, and then looking at how efficient these services are, how much is being carried for each kind of consignment trip. All of these become a lot more sustainable in the longer term when there's actually a sustainable urban logistics plan that is put in place that is allowing for the coordination of these type of policy levers throughout the urban areas. And there are a number of examples, not just in Europe, but around the world, of cities that are activating these sustainable urban logistics plans in order to minimize the impact urban logistics have in urban areas. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Philippe, for this really fascinating intervention on urban logistics. As e-commerce continues to grow, I think this is indeed like a major challenge for many cities, and I think your presentation was really going deep into the details of how to manage, the flows in urban logistics in cities. So thank you so much for this presentation. We now move on to the Q&A session. So being conscious of the time, we'll keep it quite short, a bit less than 10 minutes. And I saw that there was already like a fruitful discussion in the chat, so don't hesitate, of course, to ask more questions for this Q&A session, as this is your chance to engage with our speakers. So we already saw some questions for our speakers, maybe for Mayor Ricardo Rio, but also for Helena Loredan. We had questions on the incentives that can be used to support small tenants, such as rents reductions, training, or lending new commercial premises to retailers. So yeah, maybe like we can have like your insights on this, Mayor Ricardo Rio and maybe Helena Roedan. Thanks.
Well, as for the support to small businesses in terms of rents and other things, we have a specific focus in the city of Praga, which are the shopping malls of the first generation. You know that in our city we have a lot of shopping malls from the 80s, which have been losing attractiveness throughout the years, and which has a very split property. So it's very hard to intervene because there are so many owners and so many sub rentals effective. And one thing that we have been trying to do is to create some sort of hubs to develop in those shopping malls more competitiveness and to make them more attractive. As for the support, direct support to SMEs, we also have some specific exemptions in our fiscal regulations. And we work together with the Chamber of Commerce in a specific project, which is very interesting, which is called the historic stores, which is we have identified the stores that have many decades and that are still active, and they have not only specific incentives to renew their structure, their physical structure, but also a lot of fiscal exemptions that are granted after being classified as historical stores.
Thank you very much. I don't know if Helena Loredan, you want to add something on these questions? Or we can move to another question for Philippe Christ about how do you protect linear curb frontage for delivery So I think you already talked a bit about your presentation on this, but maybe you can add some more details for this question.
Well, the first thing is that there are tools that are available for actually designating both static and dynamic use of curbs. And one of those, but there are other types out there. One of those is the curb data specification. And that's just a simple way of digitizing the reality and the allocation of uses for the curb. So that's in terms of understanding what use can be had at what time. But the question specifically here is if, for example, a city is putting in place a bike lane that takes up that first 2.5 meters of what possibly was parking space, how does that affect deliveries at the curb? There are a number of ways to address that. Some of those are protected parking bays that are built with the bike lane in mind. So there's a number of different infrastructure methods, if you will. Another way is that in many cases where there is space, in fact, parking is being pushed out, one lane of traffic is being taken away, and the parking itself serves as a buffer to the bike lane. You see that in a lot of cities, especially in North America. And part of that protected buffer can also be a protected cargo bay delivery area that can be dynamically accessed, reserved, or that is just set aside with signs. So there are a number of different design functions. And with that in mind, I would look at those design elements that are codified, for example, in the NACTO Bikeway Design Guidance, the National Association of City Transportation Officials in the US, and also the Dutch National Bicycle Guidelines that also account for mixing cargo delivery areas in bicycle infrastructure in particular.
Thank you so much, Philippe, for this answer. Maybe we can have like one more question, maybe to Pedro Guimaraes. How can increased retail sales be achieved while still being sustainable? So that's a big question. Let's see if you have like an answer to this one. Thanks.
There is a growing concern of there is a growing consumers' awareness of the importance of sustainability. So I think it can be a niche market. Most of the process of circular economy are based on sustainability. What we need is for more retail to be based on sustainability, on more sustainable products. For instance, I'm now working on clothing projects. There is an overconsumption, there is an overuse, there is an over disposal of clothing. Some local specific retailers are now devoting their time to sell more different products that are a little bit more expensive, of course, but they last longer. So what we need is for the consumers to be more aware, but there are already some consumers who are. So what we need is for some retailers to devote a little bit of more of their business to, well, let's not sell everything, let's sell some specific products that are more sustainable. I think this can be, this of course, this is a niche for now, but it is a growing concern for everyone. So I think it will stick in the future.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think that's of course like a future debate that needs to be answered. Thank you all for your great questions, and a special thanks, of course, to our speakers, Mayor Ricardo Rio, Helena Roeden, and Philippe Christ, for your valuable and very interesting presentations. So if you want, of course, to keep on the discussion going, you can answer the questions directly in the chat that are still asked by the numerous attendees of this webinar. So as we have like now a clearer picture of how local policies can help retail SMEs navigate the twin transition and seize new opportunities, we will now move on to our second session titled Thriving City Centers, Enhancing Urban Environments to Support Retail SMEs. So this session will explore how cities can design and enhance urban environments to foster the growth and sustainability of retail SMEs in city centers. So we are very pleased to have with us an excellent panel of speakers. First, Holly Lewis, co-founding partner at the urban practice We Made That in the UK and town architect for the London Borough of Hackney. Welcome, Holly. We also have with us Diane Gallet, Deputy Head of the Action Cœur de Ville National Program at the Agence Nationale pour la Cohésion des Territoires in France. Welcome, Diane. And finally, we'll have Claire Albaret, Chief Operating Officer of the Belgian Association of Town Center Management and member of the Board of Directors of Town Center Management Worldwide. So welcome all of you. And to start this session, we will first hear from Holly Lewis, who will discuss the value of high streets in the UK.
Sorry, can I just say something?
Yes.
Just quick, as you know, I probably won't be here for the remaining of the session, at least until the end. But I still like to give the opportunity to be available to any kind of questions by email or any other discussion. Just please address me by my email, okay?
Of course. Thank you. And so finally, we will have also Claire Albaret speaking. So to start this second session, we will first hear from Holly Lewis. We will discuss the value of high streets in the UK and urban regeneration projects aimed at revitalizing these high streets. So Holly, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And I think, I think I can control the slides. So just a little bit of an introduction to who we are at We Made That, because we don't have maybe quite the credentials of some of the other speakers in the job title. But at We Made That, we create equitable places through incisive research and impactful projects. And we work exclusively with public sector and charity organizations. So that means mostly working for local authorities. And we work across a range of different disciplines. So we're a fairly small practice of about 20 people, but we have a research team who are more focused on socioeconomic matters. We do lots of work on strategies and master plans, and that can be an individual high street or a larger scale master planning for homes, and then delivery of public spaces and buildings. And high streets and town centres come up across each one of those, all of them. Personally, I've also been on the government's High Streets Task Force. So this is a national programme looking at high streets and town centres across the UK. And I'm a mayor's design advocate for the Mayor of London, which is a group of about 40 architects and designers trying to support high quality design. In general, in this presentation, I'm going to be focusing on just one project, but this is a little bonus one to start, which I think explains a little bit of the direction that we come to these kind of high street projects from. It was a project called High Streets for All that we led along with the city's team at the London School of Economics, which was looking at the social value of London's high streets. And I think in this context of talking about retail SMEs, it's really important that we understand why those retail SMEs are worthy of that support. I think often they can be seen as fairly sort of peripheral to some of those big scale retail. And I think it's not just an economic reason that we should be thinking about supporting them. Some of that I think has come up with the other speakers, but what this study did is look in a great deal of detail at the areas of London experiencing the highest levels of change and how people felt about their high streets and town centres in those areas. Together with the team at LSE, we identified these 18 drivers of social value in high streets and town centres, and I won't go through all of them, but I think it's really important that we understand that for many people, coming to those kind of small runs of shops can be a great way to maybe get your first job, or maybe if you're at risk of feeling lonely, to go and just be around other people in the city is a really, really valuable aspect of what these places offer. There are things around the ability to access health services and so on, which I won't go through all of it, but I think just to recognise that the social aspect of what these high streets offer is incredibly important to support, and it really contributes to people being able to live happy, healthy lives. And that's, I think, what we're all here for, beyond just the sort of economic function. Some studies have shown that up to maybe 2/3 of visits to high streets and town centres are for reasons other than shopping. So it's really important that we have a good handle on how people are using and why they come to these places and the ways in which they're important to them, not just what's the sort of turnover of each of those units, which I think can be quite a sort of flat and reductive way of thinking about them. Having said all of that, this is the key project that I wanted to focus on. It's called What Woolworth Wants, and we often describe it as an incremental master plan. It's for an area of South London called Woolworth that is sitting in between two really huge areas of regeneration, two large housing estates, one to the north and one to the south, that are subject to really substantial regeneration plans, lots of new homes, lots of new people coming in. Could be described as gentrification, depending on the kind of what angle you're coming at it from. And Woolworth is particularly the area that we were looking at, focused around an individual street market that runs east-west in between those two areas. I suppose the context for us is that we were looking at it as potentially getting left behind, really, with all of this investment to the north and south. How do we make sure that this area also feels valued and seen and is a positive place to be and to trade, but also for people to visit? And the way that we developed those proposals was through a series of really detailed workshops with local people, trying to understand what were their aspirations. So we used this particular method, which we call project cards, but looking at lots and lots of precedent examples and projects from elsewhere. What are the kinds of things that we could do in this high street to improve it? What are the sorts of things that are your priorities? Where are the challenges now? And what should we be hoping for and planning for in the future? And through that led to this document, which is multiple pages, but it's a sort of bite-sized shopping list of many, many small projects, but that together would add up to more than the sum of their parts, which meant that all of the various different stakeholders who are around here, so there's different landowners, different businesses, this street market, which is one of London's oldest operating street markets, obviously the local authority, there are some housing associations, each of those people who have a little part to play in this big jigsaw puzzle of, in this case, East Street Market, would be able to pick off smaller scale projects, but know that that was building towards the bigger whole, because we didn't anticipate that we would have suddenly tens of millions of pounds to spend to deliver all of it, but that actually working together and with everybody clear on their responsibilities, that could really happen. And it's been really great. This is a project that we finished the strategic piece of in about 2018. It's been fantastic to see that actually working, that local charities have been raising funding to deliver certain things that they're responsible for, that some of the shop owners have taken on board the recommendations for their properties and delivered those themselves, and also that the local authority has put some money behind the proposals. So the kind of things that we were able to deliver are things like this, and we're really trying not to supersede the existing character of the space. You can see it's a fairly sort of affordable offer, this street market. It's a very multicultural area, but things like just recognizing street signage, working with the stall holders for new signage, spending a small amount of money on these shop fronts. I think overall we spent about £500,000 or something. It was all fairly modest, but nonetheless trying to overcome issues of dilapidation, of as I said, kind of being left behind perhaps, and to really say this is a place to be proud of and that you should enjoy visiting and can enjoy visiting. Small things like this, which is carving out just tiny pockets of public spaces where people can positively spend some time, have a little rest, jump over the fence and play, and sit in the shade, enjoying the green space that exists. And some other things that were slightly maybe more esoteric, specially branded bags, new market stalls that were all following the same sort of graphic pattern and this quite bold colour palette. Small opportunities for kind of movable seats because of the market infrastructure. There was already a sort of flow of stalls coming out and being packed away and coming out and being packed away. So we were able to take advantage of that with introducing new tables and chairs and things that would follow that same pattern and slightly broaden the ways in which the street could be used. And then one final thing that I think it would be worth just highlighting is that we also worked on this project called the East Street Exchange. And I think this comes back to some of the things that I was saying about that broader range of reasons why people might visit the high street. So this was an existing library that was intended to be replaced in one of those big housing estate regeneration proposals, actually just to the south. And what that meant is that it had been kind of forgotten, I think, because there was this intention to build a new one in the new development. And what we were saying to the council was, rather than just let that thing kind of run into the ground and then close and then be another vacant unit, why don't we think about actually reinvigorating it to build an audience that could move to the new library when that relocates, but would also leave a positive, vibrant unit that could be let to other people at the point where the library relocates. So with this small, fairly modest extension, we were able to offer independent hire of the space that could be used to generate a little bit of revenue. And actually what's happened is in those years since we completed the work, that this quite distinctive little extension and refurbishment of the library has relocated as was planned, and it's now being used as a mosque, which is just really nice to think about the ways in which things that we're building can be resilient to the future, can be kind of celebrated parts of the local community, and that we're thinking about quite dexterous, flexible, different ways that we can support high street function that goes beyond maybe just retail, but thinking about the full breadth of experience. And I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Holly Lewis. I think it was a super interesting presentation on the high street and the value, social value of these high streets, because of course we don't have to only focus on these commercial spaces for their economic purposes, but also for what they bring to the people and to the city. And I think this idea of flexibility of spaces is also super important to integrate and implement in cities to have the possibility and the opportunities to have various and living and flexible uses of spaces. So thank you so much for this super interesting presentation. Hoping that the mic and the video will work. So Diane is the deputy head of the national program Action Cœur de Ville in France. And I will switch to French as this intervention will also be held in French. So votre intervention mettra en lumière la dimension multidimensionnelle des politiques urbaines pour revitaliser
You will
les
speak
zones
about the multidimensional aspects of the
Bonjour à
urban
tous, j'espère que
policy.
vous m'entendez bien. Est-ce que le son est correct?
Yes,
Ah,
we
super.
hear you
Merci,
very
désolée
well.
pour le petit contretemps.
I'm really
J'avais un
sorry
petit
for what
problème
the trouble
d'ordinateur.
you had, but
Donc,
I had a trouble
merci,
with
je
my
suis très heureuse
computer.
de pouvoir intervenir
So
et
I'm really
présenter le
happy
programme
to
Action Cœur de
be
Ville
taking the floor
aujourd'hui
for this
à ce
program called
webinaire. Donc,
At the
les
Heart
autres
of the
intervenants
City,
ont été
Action
vraiment
Cœur Ville.
très intéressants.
It's a very
Donc,
interesting
moi, donc, je
webinar,
suis
and
Diane
I'm very
Galli, je
happy
suis
to
directrice adjointe du programme Action Cœur
participate
de Ville à
in
l'Agence
this
nationale de la
program, and
cohésion des
I'm the vice
territoires. Donc, c'est
director
une
of
agence
the
d'État.
program.
Je
It's a
travaille
state agency.
effectivement pour le ministère de la cohésion
We
des
work
territoires
for the
et
Cohesion
le programme Action
Ministry
Cœur de
of the
Ville.
Urban
Donc, il a été
Planning
créé en
that
2018 et
was
c'est un
created
programme
in
en fait qui part des
2018.
projets des maires. Donc,
It
on a
was a
aujourd'hui
project that was
245
launched by
maires
the Lord
qui
Mayors
sont
of
dans ce
different
programme
cities.
Action Cœur de Ville
And this
et
program,
ce
Action
sont en
Cœur
fait
de
des
Ville,
fiches actions dans des
action
conventions
in the
qui en
heart
fait
of the
abordent de
city,
manière
is
transversale les
dealing
thématiques et qui
with
vont
the
permettre de
different
revitaliser les cœurs de
transversal
ville. Donc
question
essentiellement
of
le commerce,
the
puisque
problem that we
on va dire que
encounter in
l'emblème du
the
programme Action
urban
Cœur de
city
Ville, c'est plutôt
centers.
de faire baisser au
This is
milieu
the
d'une ville
problem of all the
avec un
shops that
commerce
are being closed that you
en
showed
déviation.
in different
Néanmoins,
speech.
pour nous, il s'agit
And so
spécialement de
what
la
is
partie
really
émergée
important
de
for us
l'iceberg et que
is
donc
to see
les
what is
problématiques de commerce, c'était
important,
aussi
what
en
is the
creusant des
problem of the
problématiques d'accès au logement dans les cœurs de
day-to-day
ville,
business
d'aménagement de
for
l'espace public et
commerce
en fait
and
de
shops.
reconquête
How
de
can
l'espace
we
public pour améliorer
reconquer
donc
the
les conditions de
urban
vie et le cadre
space
de vie des
and
habitants des
try to
centres-villes.
redynamize
Donc ce
all these
programme, à ce
urban
jour,
spaces and city
plus de
centers?
10 milliards d'euros ont été
We
engagés
have more
par
than
l'État et par
10
ses
billions of
partenaires, que
euros
sont la Banque des
that
Territoires,
were
Action Logement
just
et ALA, qui
allocated
est
to
une
this
agence pour
program.
l'habitat, une agence
It's an
d'État.
agency that was funded by the state
Donc,
in
plus de
France,
200 postes ont été
and
cofinancés dans
200
dans les villes Action Cœur de Ville
jobs
par
were
l'État
created
et
by this
par
program,
les villes Action Cœur
Action
de
in
Ville.
the heart of the
Donc,
city,
il faut bien
Action
garder en
Cœur
tête
des
que c'est
Villes.
un programme avec
So
cette
it
méthodologie.
is
Donc,
a
ça a
very
déjà
important
été évoqué,
program
donc de
with the
bottom-up,
methodology that you just
donc on
mentioned
soutient les
about
projets des
the
maires,
fact that you
mais aussi en
redynamize the
partenariat
city
avec l'État et
center
donc
and a
avec une
partnership
méthodologie
with the
vraiment
state
transversale. C'est très
and
important pour
to
nous
have a transversal
de pouvoir
cooperation.
le rappeler.
It is really important
Donc,
to recall that
alors, aujourd'hui, si on passe sur le sujet qui
today
nous intéresse plus
we speak
particulièrement
about
et qu'on en vient au
this
commerce,
really
on peut dire
important question
que
of
on a
the
eu des
small
belles
businesses
avancées et des belles
and
victoires
the
de
commerce
reconquête
and the
commerciale dans les
shops
cœurs des villes
and
Action
how
Cœur de
we
Ville,
had
qui,
all the difficulties to
au passage, je le
re
rappelle, sont des villes moyennes, donc entre
launch a
11
campaign to
30
have
000 et 100 000
new
habitants.
shops
C'est
in the
important
city
parce que ce ne sont
centers.
ni les
So
métropoles ni les villes de la ruralité. Si on fait
we
un petit
are
bilan de ce
just
qui a
looking
pu
at
être fait
cities that
sur les
are
politiques
not
publiques,
big
c'est
cities.
donc 200
We
000
are looking
logements rénovés,
about
ce qui a permis
200,000
à des
houses that should
familles, mais
be
aussi des seniors
renovated,
et des étudiants
and
de
that would
revenir dans
be
les villes
hosting
moyennes en France.
families,
Environ
students in France,
530 commerces et locaux d'activité
and
qui ont été restructurés dans les
630
communes Action Cœur de Ville
small
et
shops
notamment
that were
grâce à des
restructured in
foncières.
the city
Ces 130
centers
postes de managers de commerce aussi qui ont
with
été
the
financés dans le
manager
cadre
of
de notre plan
commerce
France
and
Relance
of small
pour
shop and
250
SMEs.
locaux qui ont été subventionnés
We
à
had
hauteur
more
de
than
25 millions
50
d'euros
shops
par
that
un fonds
received
de l'État qui s'appelle le Fonds de restructuration des
different
locaux
funds
commerciaux.
from
Donc
the state
voilà,
with the
on a
restructuration
essayé
fund.
de coordonner
of SMEs for commerce and shops, and to revitalize the city center, which was really important in our policy. Many speakers just mentioned it this morning. We have the question of the structure, the problem of the commerce, and for 3 or 4 years now, we have a lot of shops that disappear, and due to the COVID, of course, due to the change of habits of consumers because they buy online. But we have also second-hand shops that are really important also in our program. It's a new attitude of consumers, and we have so many clothing shops that are closing in France. They were very important in the city center in the past. We don't want to see them as something which is going to be the future. We would like to avoid any catastrophe at this level. We would like to listen to the Lord Mayors, and this is why we named this program The Heart of My City, because we want to do something, boost the commerce, and try to move shops back to the city centers and see how we could proceed. I don't know how it is in other European countries, but 70% of the consumers go to a big city center, commercial malls and city centers that are outside of the city. And so the commerce really changed. More than 70% of the customer go to these malls that are outside in the suburbs. And so it is a pity for the city center, but the city center has a lot of assets that we should promote. Now we know that we have problems of traffic. We have new changes, and we know that some shops that were so also in commercial malls in the suburbs now are being also empty, and so we know that the commercial centers, suburban commercial centers, are also facing problems. So because there's a lot of competition between also the rent, which is so expensive in these commercial malls in the suburbs, and it is really a problem. And we have also the movie theaters, we have also the cinemas, we have also to find solutions for the future, and we should work with the Lord Mayors for the new administrations, new options, new policies, and we should give them the necessary tools to try to fight these tendencies. Many things are in the hands of Lord Mayors because they have a lot of political power as far as the renovation and reshuffling of the city centers and renovation of urban space. And this is why our action heart in this of the city is to find the new ideas with combining new forces, new energies, and the possibility to having some finances supported by the state with a solidarity space. And these were examples that we gave to support local commerce in the city centers and try to avoid any changes, radical change, as we see in some cities where the city centers are really empty.
dirais juste un dernier petit mot avant d'ouvrir les
And
débats.
one last
Aussi,
word
en
before
s'inscrivant
opening the
dans
debate.
donc des mutations commerciales, mais aussi
We
des
have
mutations
change in the way of
d'adaptation au changement
consuming.
climatique,
We have
puisque
also to adapt
on a pu
ourselves to the
constater aussi
climate
du coup par
change
Action Cœur de Ville que ce soit dans
because
les villes
we
plutôt
witness
côté
in or
Occitanie, côté
in the
Provence-Alpes-Côte d'Azur, des températures qui
cities
explosent. Donc là
like in
aussi, on
Provence
travaille avec les
and in the
commerçants
southern
pour
part of
décaler
southern
les horaires d'ouverture
eastern
des
part of
magasins,
France,
de les
very
ouvrir
high
plutôt la nuit quand
temperatures
on marche dans
in
des
the
rues où il
summer.
fait 40 à 50 degrés,
So when you have
d'essayer
40
de
or
donner des fonds
50
pour que
degrees
les maires puissent
centigrade,
investir dans des parasols.
you should
Ça
also
paraît bien peu de
invest
choses, mais au
in
moins pour protéger leurs
the
zones piétonnes,
urban
ça peut être
spaces
aussi des grands programmes de
offering shade,
revégétalisation, de renaturation en
trees,
ville pour faire en sorte que le
some
thermomètre baisse.
umbrellas,
On a aussi
and
des villes
try
qui
to
sont
find
inondées, on
a
a des villes qui sont
solution.
victimes de l'érosion du trait de
And
côte. Donc tout ça, c'est aussi des choses
so
qu'on
we
essaye
have
de
a
prendre en
lot
compte
of
dans le cadre
different
du programme
problems that
Action Cœur de
also
Ville, avec toujours
are
cette
important with
méthodologie
these climate
d'écoute
change
des
in
maires
the
qui
summer,
devraient
especially in
adapter
these
les politiques
southern parts,
publiques. Et c'est
in
pour
these
ça
cities in the
qu'aujourd'hui, je
southern
suis vraiment aussi
part
très
of France, like
heureuse de pouvoir
Provence.
entendre
And
les
this
autres
is
villes à
why
l'échelle
we
européenne et qu'on
should
peut
do
travailler à
something
l'échelle
at the
européenne. En tout cas, je
scale
suis
of
très
Europe,
volontaire pour
at European
contribuer
scale, so that we could
et
find
essayer d'apporter la pierre
a solution
à l'édifice des
to
travaux à l'échelle
try
européenne.
to
Je vous
uh,
remercie pour votre écoute.
find a good way to
Merci beaucoup
change the
Diane et
trends.
merci
Thank you
pour
so
cet appel
much,
à la collaboration
Diane,
à un niveau
and thank you
international.
for
C'est
the
effectivement ce que cherchent à faire
call
tous les
you
deux, à
launched
mettre
for
en
the
relation différentes
collaboration
municipalités pour
between the
échanger de bonnes
different
pratiques et
municipalities and
capitaliser sur ce qui peut
cities
être mis en
and
place
town
quelque
halls,
part et bien
so that
fonctionner. Et
what
on a
we
d'ailleurs un réseau de
did
maires qui
in
s'appelle les
OECD is
Champion
to
Mayors,
find to
avec plus de
promote
70 maires qui
collaboration
justement
between
interagissent de
cities
façon régulière
so that we can
pour évoquer et parler
interact
de
and
différentes
give new
problématiques et
ideas, new
politiques et
challenges.
s'inspirer les uns
So
des autres.
once again,
Merci beaucoup
I
pour
think
votre
it would be
présentation,
a
Diane Gallet. C'était
source
vraiment
of
particulièrement
inspiration.
intéressant. Je pense que ce programme
Thank
sur
you
la
so
revitalisation
much.
des villes moyennes
Thank
met
you
bien en lumière, en tout cas,
for
cette nécessaire approche
all
multidimensionnelle
these new
pour
approaches
revitaliser ces
that
centres-villes à
are
redonner
really important to
de la
revitalize
végétalité
and
et
to give a new
des
life to the
usages,
city
des espaces
center.
publics, mais aussi des espaces
Thank you so
verts.
much
Merci
for this
beaucoup,
urban
Diane.
space.
I
Diane.
will switch back to English and we will now move to the Q&A session. So let me. So thank you very much for all the attendees that asked some questions to our speakers. So I will first maybe ask a questions to Claire. Cities such as Paris are interested in the role of city center manager. How is the role defined, and what recommendation can be made for other cities who are interested in introducing this position?
Okay, I'm going to try to make this quick, but I can last 2 hours. So, basically, what is important is to build a public-private partnership. So it's really relevant to each space because, for instance, a private a person can be a car park owner in some place or a bank somewhere else. You need to bring back together all the key stakeholders who would be involved and who will work in the partnership. So it's public sector, obviously, the private sector, which are owners, banks, anything, and also what I call civil society, which brings together the district committees, but also all the associations, should it be cultural associations, sports associations, really people that are involved in the city center and can make change things. Is that okay? As an
Yes,
answer?
yes. Thank you so much, Claire, and you kept this short. Of course, we can talk about it for hours. So thank you very much for this answer. And maybe we have another question, and it could be linked to what Diane talked about. So maybe Diane en français, quelqu'un parle de cette question de dérisquer les
You speak
propositions
about
de
this
commerce de détail en
question
centre-ville et
of
donc le
the
soutien en fait public qui est nécessaire
newcomers,
pour
new
soutenir
shops in the
certains
city
commerces
center,
particuliers qui pourraient
and
intéresser la
that's
puissance
some
publique. Et c'est vrai que
typical
vous avez parlé du coup de ces
shops
frontières de
that
revitalisation qui sont mises
you
en place dans le cadre
mentioned, and
du
the fact
programme
that
Action Cœur de Ville.
we should
Est-ce que
also
vous avez peut-être un
review
peu plus de détails sur
the
ce soutien, en
policy
tout
of
cas
taxes.
publicitaire
Could you give
vers
us
certains
some
vers les filières
details
qui apportent un soutien
about the
aux gouvernances
support
locales?
that is given by the Lord
Oui, tout à
Mayor?
fait. Donc nous, j'ai pu le citer assez rapidement. J'ai
I
essayé d'être
could
assez
mention it very
rapide.
quickly,
Dans le cadre de
but
mon
it's true
intervention,
that
mais
we
un
could
des
have a support of the Lord Mayors and one of our Action Cœur de Ville. It's a structure that is investing in loans of in the different collectivities and the different urban organizations that gives a specific support that could be also investing in the buildings and with different stakeholders to rebuy public space and also shops in the city center so that they can renovate and reshuffle these shops that were abandoned and finance studies that would be also important, like the city of Albi. It was a school that unfortunately was closed in Albi, and we were associated to this project to try to boost the shops in the main street.
À des salariés qui pouvaient avoir un tarif du coup spécifique.
And so we had an initiative where people received a regular wage to run the shops, but unfortunately this project did not continue, but each project is a specific, but it is a model that could function very well. But I could give you some more ideas, some more projects with some different way we can finance these projects. We have a lot of information also online at this level. Thank you, Ellie Lewis.
The importance of social values and citizen participation
La
in
question.
urban regeneration project in high streets. So maybe what would be the tools to involve all stakeholders and make sure to have public and retail spaces adapted to the need and to the evolution of needs of the residents. Maybe you can elaborate a bit on that.
Yeah, thank you. And I think it relates to what Claire was speaking about as well in terms of town centre management. I think across the dozens now of high streets and town centres that we've worked in, the only sure way of changing the future of that place is when all of the different partners in that place come together to think about the future and to work together to achieve it. What we find is that whilst the problems that high streets and town centres have are often shared in common, the solutions are very locally specific. So the precise method or structure that is the right thing for shaping the future of that place can be quite different. So I noticed that in the Q&A, there's some references to business improvement districts. Those are often great ways of bringing people together, but maybe sometimes have a deficit in terms of community involvement. In the UK, there's pilots for community improvement districts, which have a bigger role for community representation on those kind of boards. This is still quite experimental, and I think they'd also recognise that there have been some challenges. We've worked in smaller cities or smaller towns where they've had a town team, which is really a fairly informal gathering of residents, interested stakeholders, maybe big sort of institutions that might be there, and retail kind of business owners. But the ability to bring all of those different people together, have everybody to kind of share their challenges and what they hope to achieve, and ideally to get some money together through that structure, is I think the only surefire way of changing the future of anywhere. It can't be done, I don't think, just by local authority presence or action. It has to galvanize everybody, and I think this is also what Claire was saying. So those different structures, I think, have to be tailored to what is the place that you're speaking about, and where is there a key institution that you can hang that from, or does it really have to be public sector led? We've seen it done in lots of different ways, but that kind of combination of parties is I think, the only way to make it work.
Amazing. Thank you so much for this answer and these very insightful remarks. So I think now we are moving towards the end of this webinar. So first, I would like to thank and give a big thanks to all of our speakers for their very valuable insights and presentations, but also to all our attendees. So we were more than 100 attendees, 125 at most for this webinar. So thank you so much for your active participation, also and your questions in the Q&A section. So I think your engagement engagement by the speakers, but also by the attendees that really made this discussion so exciting. So thank you so much. And to wrap up, I will now pass the floor to Camille Viros for some final concluding remarks. So Camille, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Thomas. And just a warm thank you also from me to all the participants and all the attendees to today's webinar. It's been a really enriching exchange. A warm thank you to the European Commission, of course, for their support in making this event possible. Thank you, Thomas, for great moderation, and the interpreters also working behind the scenes, as well as the whole team, Nanami, Elizabeth, Andrew, and Marco in particular. You can all continue engaging with us via the social media and our website, where you'll find more resources about this project and more in general, the work that we do at the OECD on these topics. Follow our project and stay tuned for the publication, because the final report will be published in the fall of this year. Just to remind you that the webinar has been recorded, and we'll put the video online probably this week, as well as we'll share the presentations of today. And finally, we would like to invite you to the first ever OECD Urban Days, which will take place between the 14th and the 17th of April. This event will convene global and local leaders, experts, and change makers to discuss how to shape and finance inclusive, circular, and sustainable cities. And we hope to see many of you in Paris for this occasion. So thank you again, and we look forward to continuing the discussion. Thank you all. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Have a great day. Thanks. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Bye. Thank you.